Thank you so much, and hello everyone, and welcome to Community Talk number 33. My name is Colson, and I will be your host today for Community Talk. We have an exciting agenda today, filled with some amazing community updates and some wonderful segments. The segments today for this episode include ETHNigeria and the Zero-to-Dapp workshop, the Ethereum Dencun update, a recap of ETHDenver, and an introduction to the technical advisory board. But before we get into these segments, let me share some of the community updates with you. The Uniswap subgraph was updated by Mac and Derek from BuildersDAO. It was a great result, and you could talk to them. They were very excited about this to showcase what they did. It's very cool to see these great results from all the builders in our ecosystem. As well, last month we have surpassed 100,000 delegators on the network, so that's very good to see. And the Graph network now supports over 40 different chains. The Graph Foundation released a blog about this, and we will be sharing some of the links in this chat room here and also in the video description. So you can read the blog post and learn more about that one. There are a bunch of new GRT IQ episodes. One of them is 157 with John, or AJ for short, who is the CEO and co-founder of Astronaut, which is an innovative AI assistant designed specifically for community managers. Then we have 158 with Chris Ware, CEO and co-founder of Verida, a team pioneering a new era of hyper-personalization, where user data is utilized privately and consensually to innovate products and services. Then we have 159 with Lucky Ear, co-founder of Clave, an innovative new wallet garnering attention for its novel approach for enhancing the user experiences of crypto wallets. And then we had 160 with Daniel Keys, and he will be on the call today, so maybe he can tell a little bit about the GRT podcast as well later on. You will find the monthly core developer updates from EdgeNode, GraphOps, Semiotic Labs, Streaming Fast, The Guild, Messari, Pinex, and Geo on the Graph forum, and we will be sharing the links to those updates here, and that would be cool if we all read them so we can know what all the core developers are up to. For our first segment for this episode, we are inviting Graph advocate Timitopeo Hassan. Hassan has been a Graph advocate since 2022 and has recently done technical teaching at the Zero-to-Dapp workshop at ETHNigeria. He will be joining this episode of Community Talk to share more about his contribution and about the experience at the event. So Hassan, what can you tell us about it?
TM everybody, thanks for this opportunity to share the experience of the Zero-to-Dapp workshop. The ETHNigeria Zero-to-Dapp workshop was a workshop organized to teach Web2 developers, to introduce them to Web3 development, basically. So we had other people teaching. They had Daniel from Biddle Guild to teach people how to work with smart contracts and to deploy DApp. So we went... that's the Graph advocates and the Graph community in Nigeria, led by the community manager Chidibem, were at the occasion to show how you can use subgraphs, how you can deploy subgraphs to enhance your DApp development. To start with, there was an introduction to what the graph is, the various rules available in the Graph ecosystem, and then we had a live coding session where all the participants were developed a subgraph and deployed a subgraph. To kind of make it more interesting, Chidibem gave them an assignment. All right, once they finish deploying their subgraph, they should use the Graph client to query it. And we had aside from myself, we had 4 other Graph advocates who are on site helping with technical assistance because a lot of them had not installed the Graph CLI. Even I found myself helping people install stuff. There were people who didn't even have Node.js or NPM installed. I advised most of them to use Yarn because it was easier to work with Yarn than with NPM in my experience. So we had people who were installing all that on their system at the occasion. Then post the event, a lot of the students still reached out to me to be able to effectively query the deployed subgraphs using GraphPipe. As a whole, it was a great experience for me because previously I'd done some technical training over the internet, either Google Meet or Zoom. But this was the first time I was holding a class with people present. So having that live feedback was a great experience, and being able to help them there and then to be able to get an understanding. One of the people on that day was a project manager who was not even a Web2 dev. So it was this, he had an interest in Web3. They had been following along the various workshops that they had in the Zero-to-Dapp, and he was able to go from not understanding anything to be able to deploy his subgraph, and his progress right before my eye that in that afternoon was something that was also great to see. It actually opened my eyes to the possibilities on how to help other beginners grasp to welcome other beginner developers to the graph ecosystem.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I can see that some of the pictures from the event were also shared in the channel here. We will also share them with the recording later on. Now that we have you here, and I also see that we have Chidubem here, are there any plans for any follow-ups on this or any other events that you guys are going to be doing this year?
Well, we recently were at the first of multiple sessions for the Web3 Bridge, the Web3 Developer Bootcamp. So the follow-up sessions for that is coming up next month, where we'll be training them in subgraph development. So there are other events planned. We have also submitted proposals to introduce the graph to other communities. So we have a lot of events coming up in the ecosystem here, and we have more and more subgraph developers that we are training so that they too can teach others how to develop subgraphs and introduce more people into the graph ecosystem generally.
Great, amazing. I saw Chidubem also unmute. Is there anything you would like to add there, Chidubem?
Yeah, my background is a bit more so I'm traveling. So yeah, I would say we have a series of events that are lined up over the coming months. The most after this ETHNigeria one, we just hosted. We did one over the weekend with putting going, and that was the first session. We'll be having the second session next month on the 20th. But before that, we were also going to be having we're going to be collaborating with a Web3 community in a different city. They are hosting a hackathon and a conference. We see the hackathon or conference, ETHGlobal. We have advocates there as well to seek enlightenment and support. Let you guys are good. We are also looking at collaborating with the Web3 community in Kenya. So they have like a hackathon and conference coming up in May, which we want to be a part of that as well. And there's still another one going on in that same name, Legacy Web3 Inc. So we're actually going to really bring our people thinking secret opportunities for the race on the advocates are doing an amazing job to help teach and provide technical support to spread the awareness and further drive the adoption of Web3 and the bar in which we join.
Amazing. And I hope that after these events go through and after they're finished, that we could have some of the Graph Advocate and you here to showcase all the cool stuff that you guys are doing, because it's very exciting. So thank you so much for that explanation. All right. Thank you so much, guys. For the second segment, we are inviting Daniel Keys, the CEO of Pinex, to talk about the Ethereum Dencun update. Welcome, Daniel. Thank you for joining us here. And what can you tell us about this?
Hey, Colson, thanks for having me. Happy to talk about it. So I'll give a little bit of background. There was a hard fork recently on Ethereum that introduced EIP 4844. And the goal of that improvement to the network is to basically make the chain more scalable, make L2s more scalable by reducing the cost of roll-up transactions to Ethereum, which were already becoming expensive. You know, the idea of L2s is that L2s are a way to lower the transaction costs for developers. And what we were seeing with all of these L2s spinning up and posting their roll-ups to Ethereum, a lot of competition for block space, which were even making those roll-ups starting to become expensive. So with EIP 4844, there was introducing a new transaction type, a blob carrying transaction. And blobs basically are just large packets of data in Ethereum transactions that reduce the cost of rollup transactions. It's a new way for L2s and rollups to post their proofs onto Ethereum at a much lower cost. I believe it's something like 100x improvement in the cost. So this is awesome. Means now it's more scalable, more affordable for L2s to post their proofs to Ethereum. But it comes with introduced a new issue in that these blobs are only stored on the blockchain on Ethereum for 18 days. So after 18 days, poof, all that data is gone. The history of these proofs are no longer accessible to the community. That is until the Graph, Streaming Fast, and Pinex decided to collaborate to save the blobs. And that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about more today. So Pinex team put together a solution using Streaming Fast, Firehose, and Substream technology that can preserve the history of blobs for all time and make that available as a subgraph on the Graph, as well as, you know, we've built substreams that can be used for all kinds of other use cases beyond the Graph, and you can use that to, for example, we've used our substream to build a drop-in replacement for the blob API that's being used to store those 18 days of history. You can now use this drop-in replacement REST API that now includes the history for all of the history of the blobs. And I think it's an interesting opportunity now for the Graph. So not only so that we can demonstrate with the Graph that we are a new data availability layer for the use or for the Ethereum ecosystem. And this is kind of in line with some of the work that the Semiotic team have been doing. You may have heard them talking about the Ethereum proposal 4444, which is to prune history, and how the Graph may be an answer to preserve long-term history for Ethereum. What we've done here and demonstrated and is now live, you can already start using it, is preserving the blobs for all time. So the way that we did this was, again, using Firehose and Substream technology. Blobs are stored on the consensus layer or the beacon chain of Ethereum. Previously, everything that the Graph and Firehose was concerned with was the execution layer. So we needed to build a new version of the Firehose, basically modify the Firehose to be able to handle the beacon chain or the consensus layer. And we've developed and open sourced that. Anyone can play with it and use it if they like. We built a substream on top of that Firehose. And then, like I said, we built a subgraph that is now live on the Graph network that anybody can start querying to access all of the history of the blobs on the graph. And again, you can leverage those substreams as you want to build your own cool things, like that API that we built. You can find that substream on the substreams.dev, which is a repository for all the substreams. And I'll drop some links here to share. There's a blog post explaining all this excitement of saving the blobs. I'll drop a link to the substreams registry and some of the open source technology that the Pinax team has put together to enable this. Another really cool thing I think about this, besides being able to demonstrate how the graph can play this role as the data availability layer for Ethereum, it's a cool demonstration of the power and the flexibility of the Firehose and Substream technology. Again, we took this existing open source technology developed by StringFast, and within a couple of weeks, actually, we saw that this fork was coming and that we needed to save the blobs. And in about 2 weeks, leveraging that Firehose Substream technology, we were able to put together a prototype to demonstrate that this was possible, and it already had a working solution. And then we spent the next couple of weeks just making it more robust and powerful and getting it launched on the Graph network. So I think a lot of cool things happening here as demonstrations of the technology we have on the Graph, and how just this can continue to evolve and strengthen the position of the Graph and Firehose and Substreams as a pivotal part of the stack of data availability for not just Ethereum but all blockchains.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That was a very good explanation. I think for everybody that's non-technical can completely understand what you guys did here. So that's very nice. And I think it's very cool how you explained that all of the core developers are working together very well on this. So thank you so much for joining today and for that amazing explanation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I was happy to chat and happy to answer questions if there are any. If not, that's cool too. And like I said, I'm dropping some links here in the chat for anyone who wants to dive in a little deeper. There's a blog post on saving the blobs, which was shared earlier too. I linked to the Substream registry. I linked to the subgraph, and I'll drop a couple links to our GitHub repos if you want to start playing with some of this technology at a deeper level yourself. Here is the Firehose beacon, and I'll also drop a kind of mono repo with everything you need for the substreams and subgraph.
Great. Thank you so much. And so as you just heard, if you have some more questions about this, we will answer them in the chat room. So thank you so much. Up next, we have a last-minute replacement for one of the speakers. So I would really like to thank Kevin for joining last minute. Kevin judged the hackathon in Denver some time ago, and he's going to share some of the experience he had there and hopefully tell us a little bit about the winners.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I need to join these calls more often. I see a lot of familiar faces. So appreciate you guys having me. I just want to give kind of a quick recap on ETHDenver. I thought it was great. I don't know if anyone here has been to ETHDenver, but it's got a very good atmosphere there. There's a lot of exciting builders working in the ecosystem here. We had about 11 different attendees from various core devs or community members. Probably actually a little bit more than that. I know I saw a lot of familiar faces here there as well. So it was a really good time. We did about 8 technical presentations for developers. Myself did about 5 workshops over the period of the week, and we had a couple other people giving workshops. And then we also had over 5 panels and talks at various side events, and then at the main event as well. And then as far as projects, there was 23 projects that built on the graph, and there was actually one of them as well was a Substreams development, which is, as you guys know, Substreams is kind of this new technology, and we had a very, very brilliant team working on something really cool there. And they actually came on the Graph Builders office hours to present that last week. So the video for that should be on YouTube soon. And overall, I think it was a success. We also got a few candidate interviews as well. So some people that were interested in, various core developer positions. And we also did talk a little bit about the Graph Advocates program as well at a lot of these events. So I think it was a good chance to really engage with the community. And I'm open to, if anyone has questions about ETHDenver or anything around that, feel free to open. But otherwise, I think it was a huge success. And thanks for having me on, Colson.
Great. Kevin, maybe I can also ask you to share a little bit about the event that you did last week in London.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just got back from London. I got to see Colson, which was great. He was there. ETH London was a great event. It was also pretty well accepted. We did a side event there. The Graph Advocates DAO helped fund a side event that we did called the Graph Brunch and Learn. And it was a 4-hour event where we basically served like some kind of light breakfast. And we had basically maybe like 2.5 hours of workshop session where people could build a dApp and deploy that dApp using Scaffold ETH and the subgraph package, which is like a special branch of Scaffold ETH that has the graph integration. And it was me and Simone giving the workshop. And we had about, I think, maybe like 25 or 30 attendees. There was about 60 or so registered. So we had half show up, which was pretty good. And the graph didn't have an official bounty for the ETHGlobal hackathon, but I think that even though we didn't have the bounty, there was a pretty good representation of the graph. Simone actually hacked as well, which was pretty cool, and he built a project with Abel and with Krishna from EdgeNode, where they built a subgraph, a really cool dApp with a subgraph. And so we had a good presence there. It was very exciting, and I was really excited for that. And then also next week we're going to be in Bucharest for ETH Bucharest for another event. And so we're driving forward and hosting lots of events. So good times.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin, for all of these updates. And perhaps we could have you on next month for a quick update on the Bucharest event, but we will see if it makes sense for you and you have time. So thank you so much for joining last minute. We will go to our last one now, our last segment, and we will hear from Derek Meyer, founder at Data Nexus and inaugural member of the newly launched Technical Advisory Board. He will join us today to introduce the tab and its members. Derek, what can you tell us about the Technical Advisory Board?
Yeah, so before we go into like what it is, I think it's helpful to kind of understand like what is the, what was the problem, or what is TAB kind of aiming to serve. And as many of you are familiar, we have the Graph Council, which consists of multiple members, and they oversee various protocol changes that are happening, smart contract changes. When new networks are being added to the decentralized network, or new chains are being added to the decentralized network, it goes through just to make sure that we've got, feature parity and basically everything's working the way that you would want it before it makes its way to mainnet, right? The issue that they were running into is at some of their meetings, it's things start to get very technical. Not just in the concepts that are being discussed, but also like looking at the exact implementation. So going through the different GitHub repos and looking at the code just to make sure that it works the way that we intend it to work. And a lot of time was being spent there. And in reality, what the council should be doing is keeping kind of the high level point of view to where they can oversee the protocol and help steer it in the right direction and make sure that everything's going smooth there. And then that kind of formed the need of having another body that can look through some of the technical implementations of these various changes and just making sure that everything is nice and smooth. As well as conducting research, because not all upgrades are just like, let's do some upgrade and everyone loves it. Sometimes they're controversial, or sometimes they have different opinions, or they affect different stakeholders in different ways. And so we need to, have a good understanding of how is this going to affect the protocol overall, and is this going to be a net positive for the whole ecosystem, right? We're tasked with doing research into figuring out like what are these various changes going to be affecting? And all of that is kind of structured through the GIP process, or the graph improvement proposal process, right? So as any changes or upgrades or anything happen to the network, there's kind of a formal process to move those all the way through the line, and then you wind up with an improved protocol. So we're tasked with kind of fostering those processes along and making sure that they have sufficient information, and they're not missing things in the early stages that they wish they had later, and just making sure things can go nice and smooth all the way across. And as proposals are moving through that process, we can then provide feedback to the council and say, hey, here's where this is at. This is what we're seeing. Based off of current implementation and the way that affects other stakeholders, this is the result that we're looking at. And we have, a pretty wide range of expertise. I come from Data Nexus, and we build subgraphs, we run an indexer, we do basically everything that a stakeholder within the graph could do. And I've got a lot of just database background prior to the graph. We also have Hope from GraphOps, who, anyone in the indexer community knows Hope well, because she works on a lot of this stuff that will, ultimately get put into GraphNode. And just as a general Rust developer, she's been incredible. We have Alipra, who's another indexer, and he's got a lot of experience in reviewing smart contracts previously, as well as his role as an indexer. So he's got a pretty good grasp of how the ecosystem works. I can say from a personal level, he's also some of my best competition in terms of some of his database tuning and all that stuff. He and I chat a lot about that. And so really, really excited to have him on there as well. We've got, I don't know if you guys want me to go through all the individual members, but we have, great representation from the indexer community, as well as just from the research and economics side of, what would happen if we were to change certain parameters and change certain rewards, or like, what would that look like, and how do we make sure it can't be gamed, and, all that type of stuff. So we've got a really qualified team, and I'm really excited to be moving forward and helping the protocol grow, especially with all the new data services that folks are working on, and we're excited to have implemented into the graph proper.
Great. Thank you so much, Derek, for that explanation. And if there are any cool things happening with that new role, then we would like to have you back on to see what is happening. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. As GIPs kind of move forward and all that type of stuff, I'm happy to hop in here and be like, hey, you guys, so this is what we found, and this is what we were researching, and here were our concerns and all that type of stuff. So happy to give the community feedback and make sure that everyone's in the loop.
Yeah, I think that would be very cool, especially because it might provide some additional context for the people that may not be super technical. So I think it would be very cool to have you on if that happens. So that would be great. Yeah. So thank you so much for that already.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. That was our last segment for today. I believe Lorena has already been sending the POAP for this episode to everyone. So thank you so much, Lorena, for doing that. Before we conclude today's community talk, I would like to remind you all that there will be a Indexer office hours later today, I believe in about 90 minutes or at 6 p.m. UTC. And also, don't forget to check the monthly core developer update on the forum. We checked the links, or we shared links here already, but if you go to the graph forward, you will be easily able to find them as well. And lastly, I would like to thank you all for joining us for this fantastic episode of Community Talk. If you have any cool segments that we should host on the next one, please send us a message. It's always good to find some more inspiration from everybody here. We will now open up the perfect Q&A. But if you have no further questions, I would like to wish everybody a great day, and I hope to see you all again next month. Thank you so much.